As much as people say it is, the Hive is not a dying server, and I think anyone that says that is just wrong. You're probably thinking to yourself, Potato Pie's back at it again, simping for the Hive, but I promise that's not the intent of this video. I more want to talk about the misconceptions that a lot of people have about the Hive at the moment, and give my take on why I think the server is completely fine right now. I'll do this by discussing some of the obvious things like the low player counts and the lack of updates, but also go more in depth to try and explain why these types of things are pretty normal for a Minecraft server. Interested? Let's get started. Now, I know that this is going to be a video that quite a lot of people disagree with me on, so feel free to tell me why I'm wrong if you think so, but make sure to watch the entire thing so you get my full opinion. Also, keep in mind that, like I just said, all of this is just my opinion. We're all free to have our own, and it is okay for you to disagree with me here. Obviously, just make sure to keep it respectful. With all of that out of the way, let's just dive straight in. The main argument that I see almost everyone use whenever they say that the Hive is dying is that Cubecraft has more players than it. While yes, that is true for most times of the day, I don't feel like that's the greatest argument here. You can look at it from a couple of different ways. First, you can look at it objectively. Cubecraft usually has more players than the Hive for about 2/3 of every day. However, if you're using that as your argument for why the Hive is dying, you also still need to look at the player counts as compared to most other Minecraft servers. Literally on a midweek school day when I'm recording this, the Hive's still averaging 15 to 16,000 players. Now, if you compare it to Cubecraft, which is usually averaging around 18 to 20,000 players these times, yes, you can see that it is lower, but if you look at the player counts of literally every other Minecraft server, you can see that the Hive has them beat by almost 10,000 players. The Hive is still doing very well for themselves regardless. But let's say that you're a little bit of a historian and you remember what the player counts were like earlier in this year. Maybe you even remember that stretch of a few weeks in January and February where averaging a concurrent 40,000 players was a bad day for the Hive. Obviously, yes, 15,000 is less than half of 40,000, but there's a couple of reasons why this number has shrunk so much. First of all, if you've paid attention to world events in the past 7 or 8 months, you'll know that, like it or not, the world is opening back up again after the pandemic. People are touching grass now, having responsibility again, and not everyone has hours of their life every day to spend on Minecraft. Secondly, you can associate the more recent drop in players to school happening again. People are going back to school in person and unfortunately can't play Minecraft as easily on their computer or phone while they're in class. But like my very first point, you also have to look at the bigger picture of all of this. Player counts dipping from earlier in the year isn't just a thing that's exclusive to the Hive. This is happening across almost every Minecraft server, and again, you can trace it back to the world opening back up again after the pandemic. But even then, in my opinion, looking at a server's player count isn't even that good of a way to decide whether it's dead or not. This brings me into the next common argument that people use to say that the Hive is dying, which is that they don't update their server. To start this entire segment off, I will just say straight up that the Hive knows that there haven't been updates. Just to clear things up, if you think the Hive is neglecting their server, that's not what's happening. From my understanding, after the Sonic update wrapped up, a break was needed. They'd been working so hard, basically non-stop, to make the Sonic update as good as possible, and this caused a couple of things that resulted in pretty much no updates. First up, you've just got staff burnout. As much as you'd like to think that the Hive staff are just robots that can infinitely put out content, they are humans that need breaks after long work periods like everyone else. I know for a fact that both Clankstar and Splodger went on separate vacations just recently, and I would expect quite a lot more of the paid Hive staff also did the same. Another result of the Sonic update existing is the fact that other content had to be put on hold while that was in the works. What I mean by other content is probably things like Mixed Arcade and Replay Viewer. I know there's going to be people out there that ask, where's my Hive Swarms? I never even asked for the Sonic update. And while wondering what happened to the Swarms update is a pretty valid thought to hold, I'd imagine that passing up on one of the biggest video game collaborations in Minecraft history isn't exactly something that the Hive could easily pass up. It was a way to get the Hive's name out there and a way to get new players to try out the server. The Sonic update wasn't really designed for the hardcore PvP community, and I feel like that's what some people are forgetting. But even still, I know some people are saying, well, it's been 2 months since the Sonic event, where's the updates now? Another thing to realize though is that updates aren't that simple. You can't just do /update and then magically there's an update. They take quite a lot of time through designing, developing, quality testing, and more, and you can't just release an update. Another thing to also keep in mind is the quality of Hive updates. For example, let's say you play on the Hive and Galaxite in equal amount. Are you going to be more excited for the weekly Galaxite update, which maybe changes one or two things in a single game? Or are you going to be more excited when the Hive releases a huge Skywars update on a random Tuesday afternoon? I feel like when you get a Hive update, the feeling is just different than when you get an update on a different server. You know the Hive update is going to be absolutely cracked and you're going to want to play as much of it as possible as soon as possible, whereas I don't know if I could say the same for almost any other server. Basically, the point I'm trying to get across here is that good Hive updates take time. I want there to be updates just as much as you guys, and I will admit that just like a lot of you, I've also been feeling a little bit burnt out on the Hive recently just because of a lack of updates, but I don't think it's fair to call the Hive a dying server just because they aren't constantly releasing updates every week. Relating to me feeling burnt out though, I feel like the same can be said for a lot of Hive content creators, honestly. I know I haven't uploaded a significant video in over 3 weeks, and quite a lot of Hive YouTubers are trending down that same path. Obviously, there's a couple of reasons for this, the first one being school. I mean, there's not too much to say about it. Most Hive content creators are teenagers who are pretty much legally required to go to some sort of schooling. It can be difficult to balance school, content creation, and work in some cases, and as a result, content across the board is slowed down. There's also another thing that we talked about earlier, which is the fact that updates have been slow recently, and that's another thing that's been contributing to the lack of overall content made on the Hive. Quite a lot of people's videos rely on updates and new things coming to the server, and since those haven't been happening due to the reasons I spoke about earlier, a lot of people across the board have been getting burnt out over making Hive content. I even know of a few people that have switched the server they play on just so they can continue making content. But regardless, while it doesn't really make too much sense that people are calling the server dead because content creators are making less videos on it, I unfortunately have seen it happening. Another thing that doesn't really make too much sense though is people calling the server dead because the staff don't care about it. Look, if you know what I'm talking about, you know, but saying the Hive staff don't care about the server is like me saying that I think you shouldn't follow my Twitch. It's pretty much the opposite of what's actually the case. I've seen a lot of people say that the moderators on the Hive don't care about doing their job, but something you gotta realize about the Hive is that being a moderator is a volunteer position. None of them are necessarily required to always be online or be online for a certain amount of time every day, and I know many of them have lives and other responsibilities outside of the Hive. Yes, I know that there is still a pretty large issue with cheaters and rule breakers on the server at the moment, but saying that it's all the fault of the moderation staff isn't really fair to them at all. Stuff like the anti-cheat is literally being worked on every day, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. Just keep all of that in mind, don't diminish the work that the Hive staff puts in. So, with all of the common grievances against the Hive out of the way, let's turn our eyes forward to what might be next and what could, quote, save the server. Obviously, there's the big things like swarms and replay, which always have a possibility of maybe releasing, but honestly, I would expect a smaller update to probably come out before those. For example, the Hive's got a Skywars Kits LTM that's coming out pretty soon as per a teaser tweet on their Twitter. In case the tweet's a little too cryptic for you, yes, it was literally confirmed that that's what it's going to be by Clankstar and Splodger in my Twitch chat. We've also still got the coming soon game mode in the hub, which I still think is going to be mixed arcade. I could see that releasing in the not too distant future, honestly. Finally, about a month ago, the Hive also tweeted something about a possible content creator tournament happening in the future, and that could also be another big thing to possibly save the server. We don't really know too much about this tournament other than the fact that they're gauging interest for it at the moment and that it's going to have a $10,000 prize pool, but regardless, I think that's something that a lot of the community is hyped for. If you want to see me talk more about this tournament and other possible Minecraft Bedrock Edition tournaments in the future, I'd recommend that you go check out this video that just showed up on screen. With all of that being said though, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.